Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to start our meeting tonight by just giving an update on the number of positive cases. With the sheet that I gave you last week, I wanted to update the figures. So right now we have a total of 13 cases, positive cases in the schools, and we have a total of 88 contacts. Currently we have 2 at MHS, 2 at Whitcomb, 4 at Jarrick, 2 at Richer, 2 at Goodnow, 1 at Kane, and 0 for students at ECC. So I also gave the confirmed cases within the city. This was as of the 18th. That has changed, so I would just ask you to, if you look at the Board of Health, they post that 3 times a week, so you can take a look at that and see where the trends have been going. Cases obviously have recovered since the last report. Overall, the cases have remained stable in terms of we haven't seen any major spikes among the student population in the schools. We're hovering anywhere between, I'd say, 7 and 14 cases week by week, and that seems to be pretty consistent. Contacts have remained steady, and obviously they're most prevalent where we've quarantined classrooms. And still the information we're getting is the familial spread of COVID cases is a very prevalent factor, and it continues to be a prevalent factor in reporting. We are starting to see more cases among adults. I think that trends with the information of what we're seeing in Massachusetts overall, and we're tracking that as well and making sure that we need to, strengthen our protocols and maybe remind ourselves about not getting lax in the workplace with masks or with distancing or all those things we have to do. So my second report item is to just talk about some communication we're sending out to parents at the K-5 level. I'm not going to read the entire message to you, but in the fall, we did our best to honor requests that came after our deadline for learning platform switches. This did cause a bit of a burden on the principals and the teachers, especially the remote faculty, to consistently be adding students to rosters, changing placements, and changing the assignment for some faculty due to the number of requests. Some of these changes were up against the school year as well. So as we were opening school, we were also making changes. For the upcoming period of time, we just can't continue the same practice. And I just want to make sure that everybody hears this message pretty clearly. When we go past our deadline, we need to hold firm on that. And we tried to do our best over the fall to make switches or changes for families based on the information we had. We have to be more strict on it this time. And what we're asking for folks to do, especially at the K-5 level, is tell us by December 4th, the survey is already live, so people can respond to it. They have to tell us by December 4th what is their model of education that they're interested in for the next couple months, so we can definitively know and then be able to use that information for us to balance some class sizes. So if we have higher class sizes in the remote levels, we may have to balance that by collapsing a few in-person classes to change faculty over. We know we may have to do that, but we want to see what the data looks like before we do it. So in the past, we tried very hard to be responsive. I have to, basically draw a line here and say we're not going to be able to accept changes and switches as we come back to school in January. So, as we talk about that, we are asking folks to fill out this survey. If you're happy with what you're doing right now, you don't need to fill out the survey. This is for folks who are going to be requesting a change of their educational model going into next year. For Mr. Daniels and Mr. Riley, it's a little bit easier for them. They have 1 school, whereas the elementaries are 4 schools, and it has a wide-ranging impact. So that would be more of a email with the administrator at that level for secondary. But for elementary, we need the data to be able to look at the whole pie, I guess you can say, because there's multiple factors and multiple classrooms we have to be considerate of. So again, we want to thank everyone, but we do have to be a little bit more firm, and we're going to be more firm in the second half of the year and you're going to have to stick with what you choose. For the approval for rapid testing, which is my third item, I'm happy to announce that we have been approved by DESE to receive the rapid COVID testing at no cost from the Commonwealth. We are going through the protocols to become an approved site and to gain appropriate licenses to perform the test with our nurses administering the rapid test for symptomatic students and staff members. By no means is this meant to be a testing program for wide-scale use. This is specifically for symptomatic individuals only. So it's not something where we can randomly test a group of students every week. This is reserved and specifically identified for symptomatic individuals, period. So once we have more information for the date of our implementation, we're going to communicate with parents about the usage of the rapid test for children. We're obviously going to have to reach out with permission slips for us to be able to do the test. And as we get all that together, we'll be sending that out. My hope is it will be in early December. That's what we're hearing from the state when they want to send us our batch of tests. And then when we get them, we'll be able to start using them right away, which will be fantastic. I just want to a shout out and a recognition for Mark Rodriguez. He works at the Whitcomb School, and he is a fantastic faculty member. He's part of the engineering department, and he's taken some time to create some new plaques for our central office, new nameplates for our offices, and they just look fantastic. And I just want to thank him for taking the time to do that, and also just thank the Whitcomb staff for the welcome we've received at our new offices. I did have a picture in here, but it just didn't look good. You got to see it in person. My iPhone, I'm not a great picture taker with the iPhone, I'll just be honest. I think it'd be better for you to see it in person. I think you'll see the craftsmanship he's put into it. For winter athletics, I asked to put a placeholder for our discussion, and I just want to, from a high level, discuss some of the information we've received from MIAA. First, they are obviously looking to do winter athletics, but they have made some decisions at the state level, and there's still some more to come. So I think what you're going to hear from me today is that some of the sports like wrestling, indoor track, cheerleading, dance, those types of issues, they're being moved to a different season. So they still want to do them this year. They still want to have the sport, but they're asking to move the sport to a different season. The other thing is we just got this information. So I know I sent it to everybody over the weekend, so I'm not asking you to take any vote tonight. We're still well on schedule. Our winter sports season would come on December 14th and it would start. And I think we're going to be able to address it on December 8th without an issue. Really what we're looking at for winter sports for Marlborough is swimming, hockey, basketball, and gymnastics, understanding that some of these other sports are being delayed to a different fall season. So, for example, indoor track is being moved to fall 2, and wrestling, cheerleading, and dance, when applicable, is being moved to the spring season. So knowing that, the sports that we're looking at for this year, for winter, swimming, hockey, basketball, and gymnastics would be happening this winter season, which the season would start on December 14th. So again, I don't know if the committee had any questions. I mean, we just all got that information this weekend, and I do suspect more to come. I think, just being honest, I think there might be some more discussion on what we're doing. But I would just wanted to give you that update that they've started to release the information. They're telling us which sports would be happening this winter, what is being moved to the fall 2 in the spring seasons, so that way we can have a good discussion. And I'm happy to put that on the agenda for the 8th for us to take up as a action. But I didn't know if there was any discussion tonight or any questions you had on my report.
Questions from the committee? Ms. Hennessy.
Thank you. Just to elaborate a minor amount on Mr. Bergeron's comments about the athletics, the December 14th date, while I understand that Midwatch was already having discussions about moving us out to the 14th, that was a discussion point that had been brought up and I believe is going to be pushed forward from a state level, trying to make sure that everyone moves it out towards the 14th. Trying to align, so I think that was a great idea to give it a little bit more time. as well. Some things I learned about indoor track getting potentially moved out to the spring. There were a number of different reasons, but the indoor track folks actually felt that it would be better to move it out to spring because currently a number of the locations that would even host track events are not even available. So like the Reggie Lewis Track Center, which is one of the largest centers that often hosts, would not even be available. So while they're still working through those kind of situations, it seemed more reasonable, and that's what we had understood was they felt that it would be better to move it out. So that was one of the main points that it never even came up as a modification discussion. And the same thing relative towards cheer and dance was to move it out a little further. Relative to wrestling, that is being moved out towards spring, and I think we're all just, we will wait and see what happens. I know that there is just, some concerns already, but, there will be more information coming out about all of the modifications, but I think, to Mr. Bergeron's point, I think a lot of discussion needs to happen still state level, but probably mid-watch level as well for us to make sure that our league is kind of all on the same page about implementation of many of the modifications that were initially discussed and then obviously brought here for us to discuss more on the 8th. But I thought that that made a lot of sense, so thank you.
Other questions from the committee on the superintendent's report? Mr. Caruso.
Back on your end-of-term survey, when you send that out to the parents, I know you probably email. Are there other ways we make that information known?
We also usually put it on the app, so that way if folks don't see it in the email, they see it in the app. So we try to send it out that way. I'm sorry, did that answer?
No, I'm not sure how many, all parents have one or the other, their access to their...
Yeah, we have, we encourage everyone to have an active email address. And sometimes we get information that kicks back to us that says the email address inbox is full, can't take any more messages, or this is no longer a valid email address. We call the parents and try to update them. But we also have been kind of saying this message for a little while now.
Yeah, I just was concerned since we're going to be hold fast to a deadline that, if something like that happens where the address is no longer valid, that they're contacted. Is there any consideration being to, right before the deadline hits, to sending out another sort of reminder that this is soon coming up?
We could certainly do that.
I think that might be a good idea because some people, the first time you tell them, may say, oh yeah, they'll do that. And the second time, I think maybe it'll be more of a reality if you do it right before the deadline. But thank you.
Any other questions for the superintendent? Seeing none, Mr. Diaz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is tonight's update from Finance and Operations. Remote Learning Support Grant. Thanks to some quick action by the Mayor's office, the district was able to apply and receive approval for Remote Learning Support Services Grant from the Governor's Emergency Educational Relief Fund. This grants us access to $259,600 through December 30th, 2020. We were able to leverage these funds and our existing partnership with the Boys and Girls Club to expand child care offerings to Marlborough residents whose students are learning remotely. The grant not only allows boys and girls to expand the number of students they can serve, but also provide child care at low to no cost until December 30th. Boys and Girls Club's child care program. Boys and Girls Clubs have worked diligently to provide as many child care options as possible to the Marlborough community. In addition to operating the regular before and after school programs at the 4 elementary school, the Boys and Girls Clubs have also established an all-day virtual school program at the Hildreth School. The program is aimed at helping Marlborough students that are currently learning remotely. Financial assistance is available through December 30th due to the grant that I mentioned prior. Any parent who's interested, please reach out to Boys and Girls directly at 508-485-4912. I actually spoke with them today, and there is still room available in that program. I think it would be very helpful for parents whose students are learning remotely, and the Boys and Girls encourage that you reach out to them and join. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Diaz? Matthews?
I'm gonna ask both of you really, is with that grant expiring at the end of December, do we have any indication of extensions or additional funding?
So an extension for these would require an act of Congress, unfortunately, similar to the CVRF grant, the Coronavirus Relief Fund grant that expires on the 30th.
Zero cooperation from Washington from any side on any level. They've been a disgrace.
Push your button.
No, it's on.
So at this
You didn't
time,
hear it, they've been a disgrace. All of them. Entire freaking, everybody down there. The questions we've asked have not been addressed. The additional CARES Act money that's supposed to be released, it's been really bad. It's been really bad. So, that's my 2 cents. On any other questions?
Thank you.
On one other issue, I was on the PTO for the Whitcomb School the other night. One of the questions or concerns was students were losing connection at the Boys Club program, internet connection. So I know Mr. Bergeron got on it right away, working with Mr. Gibbs. We've tweaked a few things, and hopefully there won't be any additional issues moving forward. So whatever we have to do to make that work, we're gonna fix it.
And I know the club administration is very well aware that they can just literally call us, and any interruptions they have, we're going to be there to help, because those are our students who are learning there.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that it's working as best as can be. So I've reached out, I've talked to Chris Dwayne, she's talked to her club director. They know that they can call us, even to the point where they called last week, and I know one of our assistant principals at the elementary level literally drove a new Chromebook over to make sure that we took the one that was broken and gave the student one that could work right then and there. So we're very committed to make sure that if they're in the club and they're working on their schoolwork, we want everything to work for them.
Any other questions for Mr. Diaz?
So the issues with the bandwidth was at the club, not at Hildreth?
That's correct. Any other questions? Ms. O'Brien?
Thank you. Good evening. Since the pandemic started and when schools were initially closed on March 13, 2020, Marlborough Public Schools' first priority was the well-being of students and families. Emphasis was placed on administrators, teachers and staff reaching out with frequent contact to students and their families to check in and identify any needs that the school district can assist with, whether that be meals, health concerns, counseling, educational support, etc. Throughout the spring and into the fall reopening of in-person learning, as districts became better equipped to provide remote learning, the academic expectations increased to where we are now, with the DESE standards being that whether a student is receiving in-person, remote, or a hybrid learning model, he or she is receiving structured learning equivalent to a slightly modified school day. While a great deal of discussion has been on the planning and implementation of academics, activities addressing student and family well-being has also been ongoing. As the school year ended, school adjustment counselors adjusted their additional contracted days that are typically scheduled for the 5 days at the conclusion of school. They instead scheduled that time throughout the summer and maintained contact with students that were identified as at risk in order to provide ongoing support. Across the grade levels, schools have been providing tiered levels of social-emotional learning where all students receive universal supports while those who are experiencing greater difficulty receive more. I included a listing of some of the activities and actions that have been taken to address SEL needs for students and families. I'm not going to go through the entire list, but I would like to highlight some of those. So district-wide, we continue to contract out with Aspet Valley Collaborative for the Family Success Partnerships, which is a social worker case management for 40 students and families with the most critical needs. And they provide support with mental health, health insurance, food, shelter, any issues that they have. We also have a partnership with advocates, and we have ongoing referrals to advocates for outside counseling, and that's provided through telehealth services remotely. Across the school district, we have ongoing consultation with DCF. Part of that is monthly meetings that I've arranged with DCF coordinators with our school adjustment counselors. Also across the district, individual counseling, which includes telehealth sessions for those students who are remote, and check-ins by school adjustment counselors have been ongoing. At the elementary level, one of the things I wanted to highlight is that in the student schedules, there are daily SEL blocks for all students that are led by the classroom teachers. And our specials in art, music, health, and wellness have incorporated SEL themes that are embedded in lessons weekly. And some of the examples are that they've done zones of regulation check-ins and relaxation exercises to help achieve the green zone. Sometimes the lessons can include links to other videos like Go Noodle. There's mindfulness lessons with a mindful drawing exercise. There's lessons on characteristics such as courage and perseverance, and it's often with a read-aloud book and a drawing activity. And another activity is a cool-down corner where it's sharing of resources to promote positive thinking and self-advocacy. At the middle school level, I wanted to highlight that the principal, Brian Daniels, had developed a role of a construction facilitator that's assigned to each of the teaching teams to support students in their remote learning. And that is through the role of the specials teachers. They have been assigned as those facilitators. Some of the activities that those construction facilitators do when the students are working remotely at home is to check in on attendance during classes. They would make calls for missing students. There's immediate follow-up on the absent calls, and they participate and host a virtual morning homerooming greeting. The middle school also, in the teaching teams, have implemented doing postcards from teachers and certificates for recognizing citizens' effort and accomplishments that they send out to the students so they can get some mail with those certificates as well. At the high school level, the school adjustment counselors have had organized Google Classrooms for students to access, and those Google Classrooms function as office hours, resources for students and groups, and all of them are not the same, but they're very similar, similar to each other from school adjustment counselor to school adjustment counselor. This also provides some direct contact with the school adjustment counselor as well. And they're also holding some virtual social and counseling groups. Another strategy that's being implemented at the high school level with Principal Dan Riley is that they started to implement home visits to students who have had minimal to no engagement. And the purpose is to communicate concerns about the student and family as to why we haven't concerns about not seeing them, and to offer support and assistance. It's not in a punitive measure. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Any questions from the committee? Mrs. Bodenenja.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Jody. This was exactly what I was looking for in terms of, giving us an idea of how we were addressing it. I really appreciate your report. I had, one question was about the construction facilitators, but you expanded on that. The transition programs, are we seeing the same, are the numbers through those bridge programs similar to what we've seen in the past?
Yes, the numbers the bridge program, which is at the high school, and transitions program, which is at the middle school level, those the middle school was grant funded through the Bright program. That is now totally funded through the district. The high school program is partially funded through grants. They have seen the same amounts of students, although the numbers at the high school of partial hospitalizations, the school nurses are reporting to me that those are starting to increase. So there may be more referrals after those partial hospitalizations to those programs.
Okay, thank you. You know, there's a lot of talk kind of in the media I've seen and through other school committees that with so many kids remote learning, the numbers of like 51As that we ordinarily would be filing is way down because obviously you're not seeing the kids in the same way. Oh, that's child abuse. So I'm just curious, what are we seeing?
So for 51As, I do not have data on that from the school adjustment counselors. However, we do have a meeting coming up after the holidays with DCF regarding ongoing cases that we currently have.
Yeah.
But I do know that there have been situations that have been identified this fall that have been reported on. So we are able to gather information sufficient to be able to make those calls.
Excellent, even with the remote kids. I mean, that's you know, a teacher in their classroom outside of the home is usually the safest place for kids.
Mm-hmm. So
just concerned about how those kids are faring if they're not in the classroom. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. No, that's it. Okay.
Any other questions? Ms. Hennessy?
More just a compliment. I appreciate all of the different pieces of information because obviously it's important to all of us sitting here, but to a lot of community members that have reached out voicing concerns around social emotional support. So it's good to hear some examples, and I would also say it's been helpful to see us using social media where our communications people have really been showcasing a lot of connections that are happening that aren't necessarily just strictly core classes that have been happening. So kudos obviously to this information, but also for the communication that's happening social media wise, working with all of the educators to kind of get the information and then to push it out. It's been great.
Any other questions?
I'm cracking. I love, like, every day on my Instagram seeing it's Aiden's birthday, it's Letitia's birthday, it's, you know, every day with the little posters. I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. The superintendent asked me to give an update on physical education and movement in the schools. So since school opened this fall, student movements throughout the day have been planned and scheduled. In general, mask breaks include movement walks outside of the building, depending on the grade level, and elementary classes will structure that time as large movement breaks. At times, elementary teachers, you will see them safely spreading students across a field to run, race, or kick a ball. In classrooms, many of you may have seen recent videos, I know that I did earlier today, of movement breaks or movement within classrooms that included limited movements at their desks where students can stand, stretch, clap, or walk in place. On July 24th, 2020, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education released safety guidance for classes that included the arts, which included chorus, band, theater, dance, and visual arts, and physical education.
Well, one thing you can...
Sorry. Included in this guidance is the recommendation: we strongly encourage these courses and activities to be held fully or partially online if possible. Physical education, chorus, band, and visual art courses across the district are primarily remote classes. At all levels, as noted by Assistant Superintendent O'Brien, these teachers have included lessons focused on social and emotional learning in each of the levels. In hybrid classes, Physical education home lessons include activities that are not allowed in the school buildings and include increased movement and often include warm-up activities and exercises. As a district, our general rule this year is not to assign homework to students. That does not apply to AP courses. We've had that long discussion as a district team. But we hoped that this policy would allow students additional time in their day to allow for movement and activity away from their schoolwork.
Questions from the committee? Any questions from the committee? Mrs. Matthews?
It's not a question. Thank you, Mary, for this update on this. I know we've all become very sedentary in our ways. We all are sitting behind computers all day long now and Zooming. And I hope that parents realize too, I'm sure working from home or wherever they are, that when the day is over with school, maybe it's time to turn off the electronics, and if the weather's nice, as we've been so lucky to have, go outside, run around the block a few times, do something, be a regular kid, because you can still do that. Nobody's saying you can't be outside. So, we're not getting the regular up and down, in the high school, walking the stairs and walking from class to class, but I hope parents are realizing that with all of the electronics in front of them, that there's still the importance of getting outside and doing things. So
we need the mental break from the electronics and a physical break from sitting.
And obviously, the shelter in place earlier in the year didn't help, and we all got accustomed to certain things. But we all know we had to break up our routines and say, okay, let's back outside we go. So. But thank you. Yes, the social media we saw, especially in the last couple of days, has been wonderful to see all the stuff that the kids are doing, and I'm glad it will continue.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's not a question, but a parent was telling me that her daughter, and she's at the high school, so it must be AP classes, but that she's got they set up a space for her regular schooling, which is, I don't know, in the basement or whatever, with a special desk or whatever. So that's where she does her school. But then when she does her homework, she goes back and does it in her bedroom, which is where she always did her homework before. And so she's just kind of found a way to make that separation. Okay, school day's over. Yes, I still have schoolwork to do, but I just do it back in her other. And I just thought that it was just an interesting glimpse to how, kids are adjusting.
It is, and we all have seen the adults in our team meetings, like walking in place and getting their exercise in too. So,
yeah,
we all have to do it.
This is related, but I think I remember seeing something that there was an option for standing desks for people.
Thanks to the city. We appreciate their assistance. There's certain funds that are available to create more ergonomic workstations for folks, and we have worked with the city HR department, who's been very generous with us. And for people, we had a little bit too many requests. So we may not be able to fulfill them all, but we hope to fill as many as we can so we can get people the lifting desks so you can take breaks from sitting, you can stand, and it's a healthier way to work. So.
Absolutely. I thought that was great.
Other questions from the committee? Mrs. Hennessy.
So again, thank you so much for the social media. That definitely has given us a little bit of vision of some of the different ways that different teachers have taken it upon themselves to try and expand. Especially loved recently with some of the strings. I think it was the 5th grade that I was, right? Wasn't it 5th grade?
Yeah.
That it was great to actually see these students being able to play their instruments wherever they are, because there are so many limitations due to the aerosol reports that are out there and that data, but yet finding opportunities of individually doing that creation, but collaboratively working together. And I think any opportunity that maybe not just on social media where we can get some vision of it, because not everybody is on social media. It would be great to still be able to see some of those things, like some of the visual arts, where some of the folks are still hopefully creating some of that. at home. And I know that we can't have some of our big concerts and stuff, but it would be nice to be able to somehow have opportunities of sharing outside of social media. If this could be a forum, maybe, you know, somewhere down the road, that, you know, whether it's Jonathan comes in to basically show some different things that they've found ways of, you know, reaching people throughout all the grades. It's great to see that glimpse, but I would love it to be seen by many more. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the committee? Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Entertain a motion to approve the minutes of November 10th.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for tonight's meeting, for public participation, we want to note that the school committee is holding this meeting virtually with members attending in person and/or remotely. No public attendance is permitted. For the public participation portion of this meeting, members of the public may provide comment by emailing the superintendent at superintendent@mps-edu.org before 4 p.m. on the above date, or by dialing 774-243-0611 and then entering the conference ID 752-940-252 #. Again, that phone number is 774-243-0611. The conference ID is 752-940-252 #. And Mr. Mayor, I did not get any emails before the meeting to share with the committee.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz, what do you got over there?
Mr. Mayor, I currently have no callers in the queue.
Again, this is public participation.
And that phone number is 774-243-0611. The conference ID is 752-940-252 #.
Any public participation? Any public participation? Thank you very much. Action items. Operating budget transfers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few transfers for the committee's consideration tonight. Starting over at Goodnow Elementary, requesting a transfer of $20,855, in which we're utilizing savings in the night custodian line to offset custodian OT costs. Also transferring funds from salary reserve to offset costs of a long-term special educator substitute, as well as a lane change for a school adjustment counselor. Also rebalancing funds available for after-school costs between all 4 elementaries. At Jarrick, I'm requesting a transfer of $7,850, in which we're utilizing salary reserve line to offset a new hire, which was hired at a higher rate than budgeted. Just want to take a quick second and explain this to the committee. You've seen a couple of these now. When we budget for a vacant position, we assume somebody with a master's and 6 years of experience, so master's step 6. When we hire somebody at or below that level, you never get to see it, but when we hire somebody above that level, you see it here as a budget transfer, okay? Over at Kane, requesting a transfer of $6,053, utilizing salary reserve to offset a lane change for 2 teachers. At Richard, transfer of $13,785, utilizing salary reserve to cover teacher lane change and as well as a health wellness long-term substitute. Also utilizing the night custodian line to offset custodian OT costs. At Marlborough High, requesting a transfer of $6,900, utilizing salary reserve to offset costs of a teacher's lane change. District-wide, requesting a transfer of $178,948. This is us correcting the budget line for the EL coordinators. When we did the teacher reshuffling, if you will, the EL coordinators ended up at a school. We then assigned them. Once we did that assignment, they go back to the EL coordinator line just for budgeting purposes. Also utilizing salary reserve to offset overages in those lines due to appointed employees costing more than the budgeted amounts, as well as overages in the EL director and attendance coordinator lines. Special education requesting a transfer of $30,300, utilizing savings from the summer teacher and para accounts to offset a couple of overages in the special education accounts. I'm happy to entertain any questions that the committee might have on those transfers.
Questions from the committee? Any
Motion to
questions?
approve.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
FY22 budget calendar.
It's me again, Mr.
Figured out how
Mayor.
to pay for the current year, and you're setting up the calendar for next year.
We are working on that budget. Currently in front of the committee tonight is a proposed budget calendar, same as what you saw last meeting, except I do have to make another amendment here on March 9th. The school committee would agree on a budget number to be posted for the public hearing on March 23rd. And on March 23rd, the committee will vote on the budget.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, obviously, there's a potential here that with this timeline, we would have a voted budget for FY22 before the state would have a voted budget for this year. So I think we just have to recognize that we're going to do our due diligence, and we're going to try to get as much information as we can to build a budget moving forward. But realistically, there might be some delays, and it won't be delays on our part. It'll be delays on the information that we're receiving from the state or federal government.
Any questions?
Motion to accept the calendar as submitted, budget calendar.
Motion to accept the calendar. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Policy removal. Policy 6.200, equal employment opportunity and affirmative action.
And
And diversity.
6.202. So these two that are in front of you, the reason that we're asking for removal is actually, if you looked further down the agenda, there is a combined policy that we're putting together, and it basically would go into the slot of 6.200. So that's why we are looking at this removal. We do not need to do this tonight. Please feel free to review everything, but you will see. So this is for your first read. Have fun. Send me any questions. And that would be it.
Thank you. And then the policies for first read is 6.19, teacher responsibilities, 6.191, staff dress code, 6.200, new diversity and equal employment, 6.32, coaches, 6.400, administrative and supervisory positions, and 6.425, employment of principals.
So thank you. So tonight you have these in front of you for first read. There were a couple spelling word issues, gender issues that Mrs. Matthews found already and let me know about. So I will make, okay, so please let me know, and I will be more than happy to go ahead and make those changes so that when you guys actually get the packet for the voting, hopefully then we can have those adjustments already in there. So please do reach out and I'll make those modifications and make sure that Patty has that for the next meeting so we can get those changes to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Acceptance of donations and gifts. Ohio Pile, Marlborough High School, $10.20.
I know, that's exactly what I said when I read it.
Motion to accept.
Motion made and seconded to accept. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Reports of subcommittees. Ms. Tennessee.
So we are going to have another policy subcommittee coming up. We did have one, and we're going to keep moving through, so we'll let you know what that new date is, but I have not been able to reach out about getting a new date, but I'm assuming it's probably going to be
2021, maybe? I don't know.
No, mid-December, because I
Okay.
want to keep it going, my friend. So we will update you soon.
Thank you very much. Any other committees? Seeing none. Members Forum. Ms. Hennessy.
Thank you very much. So with the information that had been provided to us about the MCAS testing that was coming up, as you know, I've been pretty concerned about it, which I think many of you share that concern. I pulled together a letter that I have intentions of sending to Commissioner Riley about my concerns and where my base is. I did send it out to you all so I would not surprise you without your knowledge base. And I would ask for your consideration in signing on in support of this. But obviously it is not something that's a have to. This is where I'm sitting. And if you can just bear with me so I can quickly just read what my thoughts are. Commissioner Riley, I'm reaching out to you today to voice my concerns relative to DESE's plans to require mass districts to administer MCAS exams for the 2020-21 year. As you know, the educating of all of our students is paramount to Massachusetts educators, administrators, and school committees. Yet the undue pressure that is being asserted by continuing to require this type of assessment, which will have ramifications on not only the students but the districts, is simply pressure that is not needed. Additionally, requiring for MCAS to be administered only in person with minor exceptions does not allow for support of many families that chose to educate through remote learning over this year due to the health and safety for their individual family. You are simply forcing their hand to now make a decision, placing the livelihood of the students in direct opposition of execution to gain an assessment and potentially cause a negative impact on the student and the district. While I certainly understand the wishes for an academic benchmark, it is the responsibility of DESE to not put students potentially in harm's way and to focus on support and educating all students of the Commonwealth. I respectfully request that you reconsider the most recent testing schedule and information and reevaluate the needs of all of our students, educators, and families here in Massachusetts. Assessments are needed, but at this point, there needs to be a more supportive system on a local level to find what gaps there may be and create solutions and opportunities, not negative impacts. Thank you for your time and consideration, and should you like to further discuss, please feel free to reach out. Catherine Hennessy. So I just wanted to at least advise you, and if you have interest in signing on, please let me know, and obviously I can modify the letter to not be from me, but us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other members? Mrs. Matthews?
I've reviewed the warrant and have signed it.
Thank you. Any other members?
Oh, are we not going to discuss this?
What's that?
Are we not going to discuss her letter?
You can discuss the letter.
I mean, I would like to discuss it to see if it's something that we want to send from our school committee, as opposed to just individually.
I would ask the question, what's the alternative?
Well, the alternative is frankly just kind of going with it, which we can certainly just.
No. The alternative to, are you talking, you prefer to do it remotely, or you prefer on canceling it, or?
From my standpoint, I would love to venture into those discussions. I feel like there hasn't been much discussion with the districts to understand what the needs are of the districts. And so I'm concerned that the decision has been made where it's forcing everyone's hand about trying to move forward with MCAS for the sake of moving forward with MCAS, as opposed to understanding what is the point of taking this MCAS right now. By the initial dates that are coming out, I think the first ones are in January. And if I understand correctly, and please do fill me in if I am wrong, but they must be taken currently in person. So that means that if, in fact, a student has been remote, they have to make a choice to either come in or not, and that's going to impact not only that student, but as well the district. because it will be a bad mark against the district if those numbers, if those people don't come in. And I think that puts the district in a bad position, and I think that puts the student and family members in a bad position. So that's one of my issues that I have. Do I think that they could look at having some form of a remote option? Certainly, but to the best of my knowledge, I don't think that's been something that's even been discussed.
Only literally briefly at the Board of Education meeting, which may have been held today, floated out there, and it was a maybe. It was not a, it wasn't an affirmation that they're going to provide the test remotely, but it came up for the first time today.
That's, so that,
Not for
Well,
January.
because isn't their biggest fear that parents are going to take it? I mean, this is, they have said it but not said it? I mean, we've given assessments, haven't we?
Yes,
For
we
remotely?
can do remote testing. I feel
Parents
very
aren't sitting
confident
there
in that.
taking it for their kids.
We've done NWA testing for the entire district. We're about to start our second round of NWA testing. We can do testing remotely.
right, which, again, I'm not saying that this is the solution. I am voicing concern with them plowing forward with something, and that's what my concern is. There are so many different issues on so many different levels. We have gaps that we're all concerned, educational gaps that we're definitely all concerned about. We have a concern where right now we have the juniors did not have the opportunity to obviously take the MCAS in the spring of their 10th year like they normally would do, which is normally a graduation requirement, which also affects kids getting selected for the John and Abigail Adams scholarship. So there are a lot of domino effects here that I do not feel confident that have been fully flushed out. And I think right now it feels to me like we're just trying to plow ahead with something when we've really not pulled it apart enough to really talk about what our options are and find solutions rather than causing another problem. So that's where I am.
Go ahead, Joe.
So my first question is, when has DESE ever asked districts what they need? Never. That's not the way they operate. So my feeling is the only recourse we do have, I mean, I know that the Superintendent's Association is in constant conversation with the commissioner. MASC is in constant conversation with the commissioner. In both cases, they have laid out all of the problems, yet nothing seems to happen. And I think, and the way that both the commissioner and the governor, for that matter, have been operating in all of this is wait, and at the last minute, change. And I think that there are a lot of people that really are expecting that at the last minute, they're going to call it off. Who knows what they're going to do? But they never ask our opinion on what.
That doesn't mean we
100%. I mean, the only recourse we really do have is to do something like this and to just, publicly make a statement that we disagree with the way that they're plowing ahead and that these are the reasons why we think it's a bad idea. And I think it's completely appropriate to do. I would have a couple of maybe wordsmithing tweaks that I'd be happy to work on with you. But I would support sending it from our whole school committee. There are other districts around the state that are sending things on this topic, on other topics. I know Cambridge is sending something about, I forget what that was on today.
God only knows what they're sending.
No, it was appropriate. What was?
There was a resolution on,
I can't remember.
funding.
I know.
I think it was a funding thing, wasn't it?
Oh, I know what it was. They were pushing because they were pushing to have the governor clamp down on the way people in general are behaving because the kids not going to school are suffering because not because kids are giving it to each other in school, but kids are getting it because other people are behaving poorly outside of school, and it's affecting kids. At any rate, I personally would support sending this.
An amended letter.
So,
Yeah, mine's like wordsmithing. It's not, no content changes,
so
just.
what has MASC done on this? Anything?
I mean, they hoot and holler, there's nothing, MASC has no authority to get the commissioner to do
But
anything
they have a
differently.
lobbying group.
Yes,
As
they are.
opposed
No,
to.
but I did contact MASC on this conversation. The conversation started, and as others, resolutions or letters that have come from districts, as it builds, they then come as a lobbying organization, saying all of these districts have this concern. If it doesn't come from a district or multiple districts, they're not going to lobby until they know what to lobby for.
But again, I guess I'm looking at it saying, it's just one more letter about one more complaint that they're doing of what they are or are not doing. You know, they get
No,
them
I don't-
every day.
If MASC doesn't know that there's an issue for districts.
It was a resolution there was a resolution on
The-
canceling the MCAS.
Yeah, can't, yes, you're right, it was.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean,
We all voted on that
They
one.
voted, the not conference that we had, that was a resolution that was voted very, probably close to unanimously across all the districts. And that's a pretty powerful message.
It's Tennessee.
So my other reason being on a personal level is actually Commissioner Riley has been here a number of times, and he knows this district because he's actually walked the halls. Prior to the COVID, he was in our classrooms, being a part of things. So not that I think that we are any more special or set apart than any other district. Actually, I think that what it is we're a true example of a district that we want to partner with them. We want to find success. And if we don't voice our opinions to the commissioner, we're supposed to be advocating for public education for all of our students, for their success. And if we are not advocating by telling him whether we feel they're right or they're wrong or they're green or purple, then we're not doing our jobs either. So whether you all want to sign on with me or not, it's not going to be a personal affront to me. I'm not going to sit silently just kind of nodding my head when I want to say, no, you got to think about everything. So again, I have really, it's completely fine if like you all don't necessarily want to, but I personally can't just sit there, and you guys know me long enough. Okay, Dan, maybe you haven't yet, but you're going
I'm
to.
learning.
Yeah, you're learning. I would not be me if I didn't say something. And I'd walk up to him in person if I had the chance with my mask on and tell him, because you guys all saw him go after the other commissioners before.
Yeah, and then he died. I mean, sorry. I'm sorry. That was inappropriate. I take it back. I would, excuse me, sorry. I would like to beef up, you kind of alluded to it, but I feel like we're doing our due diligence and testing our kids to find out where the gaps are. We're doing it. We figured out a way to do it remotely, and we're doing it. And we're getting the data that we need to adjust our teaching practices to meet the needs of our students. We don't need the information from MCAS. I mean, and
know there's going to be an issue.
everybody knows there's going to be an issue.
Can I make a recommendation? Any input you have on the letter, please provide to Mrs. Hennessy for possible adjustments. Bring it to the next meeting to be voted up or voted down.
So does that mean that you might, as a group, consider? Because I want to know that the group is actually considering it, yeah?
Yes.
Before we actually go through lots of modifications. So, yes, Dan. Oh, I'm sorry, through the chair.
Mr. Caruso.
Well, you have to look at this also. They've had time to think about this. And they haven't. They've put this issue sort of off to the side themselves, and all of a sudden now looking at it as if MCAS exists in some sort of bubble that's not in the COVID world everything else is in. So they have to understand that we see these problems on a daily basis, which they don't seem to see unless it's come up in the rotation of things they're looking at. So I think the more we yell and scream at them, which I think happens to be the best way to get their attention, the better. I mean, I have issues with MCAS just as what they are. But if we're going to have to do this, then they better be done in a way that at least is not causing more harm to our students than they're already having done by what's going to happen with this COVID situation not being straightened out eventually. I mean, until it's straightened out eventually. And also, we don't want to have it so that they're forced to do something that's going to also harm them physically as well. So I think it's perfectly legitimate to say to them, look, we need you to listen to us. We have time. If you want to do this the right way, you have to ask the people that see what's going on every day what the right way would be, or the best way, or what's not going to cause more problems, what we're trying to do every day with our students in school. I mean, we've already seen tonight several things that have told us, we're having enough problems with handling what's going on now without having to add to them by having MCAS sort of there, not there, sort of there. Maybe we have to bring the kids in. It's like throwing the ball, after the last team has after the last person left the field and calling a strike. Well, there's nobody there to catch the ball on the other end. That's my first and only sports metaphor I'm never going to use in my life. At least I threw a ball across the plate and didn't throw a football across the plate, so I got that right.
Okay, so anyone that wants to make suggestions, Michelle, let me know, because obviously we need to be cognizant of not going against open meeting laws, right? So if you have specific comments or something you're interested in adding, you have the base letter, please send me a one-on-one, okay? And if you've got a few more, maybe we'll have a little Zoom session.
Yeah, wordsmithing doesn't violate open meeting law. I mean, we're not making any decisions.
Okay,
Yeah, you are. You can't have a joint meeting or a discussion with more than 3 members if you're putting it before the body.
So let's have feedback, give me feedback, and then, and we will move forward, and I will bring something back, but thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Catherine.
Any other members? Just on a happy note, I had the opportunity to go with the superintendent to visit the Goodnow School, and it was my first time going there with students in classrooms. It was fantastic. So thanks for the invite. Amy did a great job, and excited to have a real open house there someday. So.
Thank you for coming that day, Mr. Mayor.
Mrs. Matthews.
I would just like to say, I want to wish everybody a very happy, healthy, safe Thanksgiving in any which way you're doing it, and hopefully in the smallest number possible, to keep our community as safe as possible.
Great. See you on
Gobble,
Kelleher
gobble.
Field.
Yeah.
Need a motion.
I just want to
There's
see
more?
if our student rep would like to perhaps.
Would you like to say
Is
something?
there anything you would like to say, Allison?
I don't think so.
Okay. Great. Move to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor, opposed, carries. Thank you very much.